how to create passive income in a way that gives you time freedom, the real thing that people are after.
I wanted to know, how could I actually spend time with my kids, and how could I be financially free without having to worry about what the next crash may look like? Financial freedom has nothing to do with debt freedom, has nothing to do with having multiple seven figures in a 401k account. It's all about actually having more passive income than you have monthly expenses.
This is the Own It Show, where we tell stories of how everyday people made ownership theirs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm your host, Justin Rothling-Schofer. And if you're new to the Own It Show, first off, welcome. It's awesome that you're here. And what we do on the Own It Show is really make clear as to the direction in which you need to go to take full ownership of your life. What does this look like to live a life by design? What does it look like to live in ownership? And so you've got over 200 episodes of solo episodes with my annoying voice that's kind of speaking into you. You've got great guests that have been able to just give you massive wisdom of what direction to go. And if any of those have ever spoken to you, all I ask is you leave a review, you leave a star rating, or you share it with a friend, because that is how we reach more people. And if everybody does that over the course of time, that is how we impact and change the world. And so I'm so excited for today, because the guest that we have on has not only found a way in which to live a life by design for his health, for his marriage, for his family, for his children, for his business, but ultimately for his finances and how he operates in financial freedom. And it's been amazing to see this man just come from a client to now a dear friend, and somebody who has been able to really impact people in a very authentic way. You see a lot of stuff in the financial space, in the business coaching space, where it's a little bit of a fugazi, and it's more of just continue to do more and more and more and more, and you're going to get more. But what Russ has been able to do is really been able to help people understand how to create passive income in a way that gives you time freedom, the real thing that people are after. So when you have your health, when you have this life by design, you can spend the time that you gain with the people that you love most. And so Russ has been the engineer behind this. Wealth Without Wall Street is his mastermind, is his business that he's created massive impact with. I've had the pleasure of taking his Wealth Without Wall Street mastermind stage 3 different times now, and we're working on some really exciting things together. But Russ, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I can't wait for you to share your wisdom and knowledge with our audience.
Man, humbled to be here with you, Justin. I love everything that you're building and everything that you've done, and personally been impacted by it, as you mentioned, just being a client of yours. So yeah, excited to jam today.
I love it. Russ, kind of tell me a story that really encapsulates why this life by design and wealth without Wall Street is such a massive passion for you. Tell me about what it was that caused you to get on this train and on this kind of push this bus, if you will, and why you've chosen this direction in which to lean into.
Yeah, man, I think that the key is that as parents, my wife and I have 4 kids. One of the things I've realized is that my daughter is never going to want me to push her on a swing set when I'm 60, right? My son is never going to want me to play Legos with him, in his 30s. And the world that I had been taught initially from financial freedom standpoint was really about an accumulation approach to finance. And probably as you're listening to this, maybe this is what you learned as well. I just learned it professionally. I was a certified financial planner. I was an investment advisor. I was working with people with this concept of let's accumulate, 6-7 figures of income and then assets and build it up to when you're 60 and 70, you can ride off into the sunset and hopefully not run out of money. And what I realized is that approach was not getting me any closer to actually spending time with the people on which I love the most. And I think that that's what really hit me in the gut as my kids started growing older. I was exposed to a market in 2008, 2009 that completely crashed. And the world in which I had been taught had been turned upside down. And I wanted to know if there was a better strategy. I wanted to know, how could I actually spend time with my kids, and how could I be financially free without having to worry about what the next crash may look like and how far would that set me back. And I'm just passionate about trying to show people that financial freedom has nothing to do with debt freedom, has nothing to do with having multiple seven figures in a 401k account, right? It's all about actually having more passive income than you have monthly expenses. And no matter where you are today, you can actually calculate as a percentage how close you are to financial freedom. And I know, Justin, you're data driven. You love statistics. You love being able to measure things on a daily basis, weekly basis, see trends. And I'm the same way. Like if you know how much passive income you have, let's just say it was $1,000 a month coming in from rental income, from maybe a commercial building you own or a couple of rental properties you have, and you have $10,000 a month of monthly expenses. Well, you're 10% of the way there. You can track that as a percentage. And for me, I love knowing how close I am to financial freedom. And I love being able to see other people make gains and track that data, because that's where really we start to get rid of all of that stressors on our body when we start adding in the unknowns of finance.
You mentioned something as kind of coming into like your past and like this past life that you lived. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that has a lot to do with creating credibility and also validating your story, but really gripping and creating this sense of relatability to the listener. Because a lot of people who are listening have people like the past Russ in their life, the financial planners, the people who have been doing the things traditionally, the people who have been helping them with their 401ks and really selling them this dream of, hey, work really hard now, get to a point where you can retire, and then ultimately get the time freedom that you desire to do exactly what it is that you're wanting to do. Talk me through maybe an exact story or something that hits so home and close to your heart that you were kind of going through this journey with people and you were seeing the struggles in which were occurring that ultimately led you to want to do something different.
So I remember my business partner, you've met him several times, Joey Murray, and he was actually a client of mine early on. He was a mortgage broker, was doing very well, was making $300,000 a year. And he was attached to his phone on a constant basis. I think maybe some of us can relate, right? We wake up, we're addicted to that phone. Well, he was addicted to it for a completely different reason, because that's where he was making his money. He always had to be available for the real estate agents. And as we know, real estate agents typically have to be available 24/7 to their customers. And so there was this constant revolving thing. And I remember when I'm working with him in 2010, and he's telling me about how he just spent a whole week down at the beach with his family. And he's driving back and he's saying, man, this was the worst vacation ever. And I'm like, bro, how can a vacation at the beach be bad? He says, man, because what I end up doing is I end up spending 80 or 90% of my time on the phone inside the condo and not on the beach enjoying it with my family. And he's like, I would end up walking out to the beach 4 or 5 hours after I said I was going to be there. And then inevitably I would meet them on the boardwalk on their way back in. He said, I realized what I was trading along this path was giving up time with my family. But I thought, hey, here I am. I'm working. I'm paying for this vacation. I'm paying for all the things that we enjoy. And I recognize that too. I mean, personally, I experienced that same thing. But his story was so prominent to me as we were sitting there trying to figure out how could we find a way out of this, grind? How do we get to a point where we stop having to trade time for money? To where we don't have to go to work. We get to go to work. We get to serve people. Yeah. And I think that that's where, to me, the more of those stories I've heard, there's hundreds of those stories. When the Roberto Chavez, who was an attorney, who's sitting there in a firm grinding for 9 years in a row, and he's trying to figure out how he and his, new bride are going to live a life by design and how they're going to enjoy life the way they wanted to live. But yet the only way that he could see in the firm in which he was working to make more money was working 60, 70, 80 hours, billing more hours. And he's like, how is that going to actually get me more of what I want? It seems like the people that are in that position are no longer really enjoying it, but they're doing it because they've got addicted to the money that comes in. And so those stories are what drive me to say, hey, is there a better way? Is there a pathway? And to be honest, it was podcasts that I was on that we were asking these questions of people who are having options to get out of having to do that, to where I started to learn personally that this is something that I could do, because my wife was a dentist. I was a certified financial planner. We had high incomes. The difference is we didn't have our time.
It's so funny that you mention all of this. And I take massive notes as we start to speak, because even though the amount of preparation I go into each podcast, there's things that the guests say that just really jump out at me. And what you just said there, where you're trading time for money. And even though the financial success in a lot of people's eyes is happening, you're all of a sudden locked into these golden handcuffs. And these golden handcuffs that you are saying, hey, I'm going to increase my financial gains, but I'm also going to limit and lose my time and my time freedom. And that's, I think, where Russ, what we're doing in this world and what we're creating in this world has such heavy alignment and relatability, because as people continue to sit here and give away their health or trade their health for their mission, they ultimately then have to go and turn around and trade their finances, their wealth that they've built to gain their health back. And that's where we come in from this in just two really cool ways, is where we help people optimize health, create longevity, while you optimize time freedom to make sure that A, they can spend time on that, but also B, mitigate the stressors. Because here's something that I did. In preparation for this, I looked at three big things. I looked at one, and we're going to dive into this. Number one, how health and longevity, we are only increasing. What we do is making sure that we can live longer better. So making sure that we can live well better. Well, now that we're living longer better, we better be able to have finances that get us through this time, because living longer better, unable to afford that, is not allowing that to happen. Number two is time freedom. There's a massive need to make sure that when we are healthy, when we are well, we want to be able to enjoy that time. We want to be able to enjoy that time with our kids, with our grandkids, or on vacation, the story of Joey you just spoke about. And then number three was I looked up the top 3 stressors that lead to chronic health issues. The first one is the death of a loved one. The second one is divorce. And the third one is financial stress. And so when you look at these 3 things, and we're going to dive into one at a time, it just goes to show why I wanted to have Russ on. Russ has been able to figure out how to create massive financial freedom to reduce one of the biggest stressors that creates chronic illness, while also mitigating the biggest hurdle that people have to leaning into starting into their health, which is time. He's been able to create 2 things in here that have massive give back to making sure that you can live a life by design for the long term in a sustainable way that feels good and continues to create reciprocal impact in along with each other. So when we go into number 1, health and longevity, we're living longer than ever before, meaning we're going in this direction of living longer than ever before. So it's no longer okay. The traditional model of saving until you're 60, 65, retiring, you usually only had to live for maybe 8 to 15 years. To be honest with you, the average lifespan of a man in America is 73.8 years old, while the average life of a female in America is 77.6. So if you're retiring at 65 years old, there's somewhere between 8 and 15 years as an average that you have to be able to live that way. Well, if you're now focused on health and wellness and longevity and living longer to your 80s, 90s, and closer into the hundreds, you've got another 10 or 15 years. You have to figure out where that financial freedom is coming from. And that becomes a big play that you have to have. Russ, talk to us about when we talk about making sure that you have a plan that looks like passive income over the course of this time, what does that look like? Like, if somebody's never heard the term passive income, if somebody's never heard of wealth without Wall Street, what does that actually look like, so that we can now start to see, oh, this is where my interest level lies, creating passive income while having great health, so that now I can live freely in the way that I desire.
Yeah. So let me address the thing that I think sets this up so well, is what you're talking about is as we live longer, right? As medical advancements have happened, as we listen to professionals like yourself, we start following the routines that you're helping us, control those 8 items in our life that help us really start reducing stress, increasing our HRV, right? Increasing our lifestyle. Well, then that pushes on how much money we need. There was a study done many years ago that is often referred to as the 4% rule. And for those who don't know what that means, is they studied the financial portfolios of people over a long period of time and determined what withdrawal rate could you take out of your investments over a period of time and guarantee that it wouldn't run out of money. Right, that's a good thing. Like if you're climbing a mountain or you're getting on an airplane, what is it that you want to ensure? Is that you get back safely, right? So whenever you're taking money out of an investment portfolio or retirement, what do you want to guarantee? That you're not going to run out of money. Well, what they determined is that over a 30-year window of withdrawing money, you could take out 4%, Justin, outside of your portfolio and have a 100% chance that you wouldn't run out of money. So that means if you had $1 million, wow, you could take out 4%, which is $40K. So just think about that. If you wanted $10,000 a month, you needed at least $3 million in your account, taking out 4%, which is under $20K, $10,000 a month. Now that's before taxes, right? But that's how much you could do with over a 30-year window to guarantee you wouldn't run out of money. So after that period of time, then now you have a probability that it could potentially run out of money. They saw there were scenarios or timeframes in which they could actually run out. Well, the further that we start living, right, the longer that time frame is in which we're pulling money out, then the smaller amount of the percentage of withdrawal can we start to take out. Or the opposite is we need more money in that account. Well, that starts to freak people out. So what do they end up doing? They end up stressing in working longer hours, missing out on the things that they need to do, maybe even starting to scrimp on the things that they should be doing, eating healthier foods, taking better care of themselves, doing, the self-care of things. They start missing out on those things. So they actually start having a self-fulfilling prophecy to their health being poor because of that very thing. So what's the purpose of passive income? Well, passive income is something that comes in that you don't go to work for. It's something that comes in on a reliable, predictable basis. And if I could build a stream of income that's going to happen into the future, and I have a way to predictably repeat it and continue to increase it at a level greater than what I spend, does that not, one, give me the flexibility to do better things today, but also a relief, a stress reducer on my body because I'm not worried about my job, right? I'm not worried about the economic environment that exists because then that's going to create more pain. The number one risk and number one concern of people in retirement is they're going to run out of money. But if you've built a stream of income that continues to come in and it's not like I'm pulling down from this account and it's getting lower and lower and lower, I'm living a life of abundance. And what I feel and what I experienced when I was in the financial industry is that people in the current save and accumulate model create a habit and a lifestyle of scarcity. And then when they hit this retirement age, in which they're going to now ride off into the sunset, take the RV across the U.S. and spend and do all the things. They don't do those things, right? Because you don't build a lifestyle of habit over 30 or 40 years of scrimping and saving, and then all of a sudden become this frivolous spender. You don't do it. And then potentially health changes as well, and they can't do it. And so why is passive income so important? Passive income gives you that freedom today, gives you the ability to enjoy the things today, but not with this, I'm not going to be smart with my money. I'm not going to be a good steward of the money. Yeah. I'm actually finding ways to use it. And then everything becomes an opportunity. Well, if I want to go on this vacation, how can I have my passive income pay for it? If I want this new item, how can my passive income pay for it? How can I buy assets that can produce passive income to have it pay for it? And there's story upon story, which I can share of things we've done that with.
Give some examples to the audience if they are unfamiliar with the term passive income, because I think a lot of times, especially in the gig era of entrepreneurship and the consultant era of entrepreneurship, they think passive income comes to creating a course and throwing it up on Instagram, and people are just clicking on it and creating massive passive income in this way. And that's where passive income comes from. And I think there's been a lot of passive income obviously is a buzzword. And just like for me in my industry, holistic wellness or personalized health, precision medicine, it's all buzzwords that longevity, optimization, they're all buzzwords that like get people's attention. But the thing that I love about what you've done, Russ, and the way you've made passive income real to people is passive income does require attention. It does require work to get started, to get going, to ultimately make sure that you're doing something the right way. But as you design it purposefully and intentionally, you get to a point where income rolls in while A, you're sleeping, B, while you're enjoying time with family and friends, C, while you're on vacation, and D, while you're doing things that you love, which could continue to be your business. So give some examples of what passive income actually is and how you set that up to ultimately create the time freedom, which is number 2 we spoke about.
Yeah. So passive income for me, but when I first started with this, Justin, I would have only thought of the typical things like rental income, right? Like whether you owned a single family home, maybe you had, you own an apartment complex, or maybe you owned the building in which your business operated in. Like that was probably 99% of the ideas that I had been exposed to, even as an investment advisor, because that was what most people that I knew did. And then we started this podcast back in 2017, and we started interviewing people who were coming in and they're like, yeah, well, we're doing short-term rentals. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I've experienced short-term rentals. I've rented houses down at the beach or in the mountains. They're like, yeah, well, we actually rent them here in town, and we don't even actually own the properties. We just lease the properties, and then we turn around and put them on Airbnb, and we book them out for people who are coming in for a couple of days, traveling locally. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Never heard of that. Man, we interviewed this guy named Mark Podolsky, the land geek, and he was talking about how you can go buy little tracts of land in the middle of nowhere from someone who basically doesn't want it anymore, tired of paying the property taxes, and you can buy it from them and then turn around and sell it on platforms like Craigslist or Facebook to someone who does want a piece of land, and you sell it to them on monthly terms. You owner finance it to them. And so you take a piece of land, maybe you paid $5,000 for it, and all of a sudden they're paying you $400 a month for the next 6 years. I'm like, man, I never experienced that. People who, like, we all know and probably buy things constantly on Amazon. Well, there's those products, right, are from people that are building businesses, finding products and then selling them on Amazon and building those businesses. We got a guy in our community that in the pandemic started a company in the kind of bedding area. And next thing you know, over the next 18 months, he and his family built a business where now they're selling over $1 million a month on Amazon, and this is happening where he's working 5 to 10 hours a week, managing everything from a laptop, and travels wherever he wants to. I'm like, never thought of that. Obviously, the many different places in which you can invest. We've, just got off a call with a guy who's in the mobile homes park space. We've had people in the self-storage space, the ATM space. There's lots of different ways in which you can build passive income. Yes, you have, a YouTube channel and be successful like Mr. Beast and bring in, passive income, if you will. I don't know if that's passive or not, as he's working to some level for it, but he's got reoccurring income. And then there's multi-level marketing companies and other things in which they build passive income streams. It can look a lot different for different people, but it ultimately comes back to how do you build a stream of income that you're not actively having to work in for. And what we have built over the last, because we report on this, Justin, as you know, every single month to our audience, we've built 21 different streams of passive income in 14 different areas. And it's something that has continued to grow as we continue to focus on it.
It's so funny. And for everybody listening, as you just heard Russ talk and go through a lot of these examples, a lot of them for you may sound one of 3 ways. They may sound fake. Like, oh my gosh, there's no way that anybody does this. Number 2, they may sound like scams. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how easy this sounds. Nobody's ever doing that. Nobody's buying land in the middle of nowhere and paying a monthly retainer on that to basically sell it back to somebody else. And number 3, you might be saying, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't even know how to start because now I got to learn how to do all of this. And here, coming from somebody who thought all of those things when I was going through this to begin with, number 1, these guys are experts. And it's not just these guys, their community is experts. And that's what I love so much about them is they have people who have given their life and paid attention to this and built an expertise in this area and made sure that they do the work. I don't have to. So Elise and I are able to invest money from our business, money from that we make into something else, rather than having to manage our own homes that we're renting out or our own Airbnbs, and now have another thing. And we think we're building passive income. Because I'll tell a little story. About 6 years ago, we started to buy real estate. A little longer than that, 8 years ago, started to buy real estate. Built a real estate portfolio up of about 4 or 5 different properties. And all of a sudden, we started to look and go, man, we've got all of this equity tied up. I don't know what to do with it. I'm not managing the homes well. We're too busy with our business. We want to focus more on our business, but we're pulled in these other directions. And really all I ever wanted to do was create passive income through rentals. And it just bogged me down. Well, when we met Russ 4 years ago, we suddenly became attentive to some of these things. And I had the same feeling. So I was like, that's a scam. That's fake. That's not going to work. I don't know how to do this. This is overwhelming. I can't learn this because I can't even figure out how to rent a home properly. Really? And what was so powerful was being able to say, oh, you mean I can just give you a certain sum of money? You can help guide me on where it goes. And then somebody's there operating it and making sure that it's working and doing what it's supposed to do. And then you get basically monthly or quarterly checks that are continually giving back that you can then invest in further? And the answer was yes. And suddenly, as you start to see this, you start to go, wow, these are legitimate businesses that are helping and serving people in a big way. You talk about the car wash industry of a bunch of car washes. You talk about the mobile home parks that are providing mobile homes for people. You talk about the multifamily residences that are all of a sudden being able to revitalize old rental buildings that have just been neglected and let go. And there's all of these things that are happening that are creating passive income that you don't have to go and pour time and energy into. Somebody else is doing that because they love it and you get the benefit of it. The other thing that I love is going back to the scams and the fakes, is there are a lot of scams and fakes out there. There are a lot of Ponzi schemes. There are a lot of things that are being posed. And why I love these guys and what they've done is they've vetted everything. They've vetted themselves. They've vetted the people coming in. They've vetted the deals that they have. And ultimately, they're not just the ones supporting these. They're investing their own money in these. They're looking at how they're doing this for themselves as well. And that's why they've become a trusted source, so that Elise and I have gotten our time freedom back to be able to pour back into Own It, be able to pour back into people, be able to pour back into where our love and where our passion is, while also being supported so that we can alleviate one of the stressors that ultimately hurt our health. We can ultimately focus on our health and longevity. We can focus on the way that we operate. We can focus on our business. We get our time freedom back, and we're able to mitigate the stress there. And so that is why I wanted to bring Russ on to talk about this, because it is something it has been a massive change in my life and a massive blessing in my life in the way that we've operated. And it created a little bit of a mindset shift. Russ, talk a little bit about the mindset shifts that happen once you go into this type of realm or into this type of space, because it is so non-traditional in what you're taught. And I'm guessing that also comes into the name Wealth Without Wall Street, which was so cleverly put together.
Well, I think a big thing that I had to realize early on, Justin, is that I had to become a better investor, right? Robert Kiyosaki, the
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
The people the Purple Bible, right? Most of us have read at least one or two of his books. He has a famous saying that there's no good or bad investments, there's just good or bad investors. And I was a poor investor, right? I've invested in things that have been scams. I've invested in things that have gone to bankruptcy. I have hundreds of thousands, almost 7 figures in losses in certain areas. And a lot of times I look back to those experiences. What did I not do? Is I was not being a good investor. I was not understanding the due diligence behind being an investor. No one's going to take care of your money better than you will. And while we don't have to be experts in the area, but we do have to own it, using your terminology, right? Like, I expect and trust that your team of coaches are going to help me better understand the data and give me tips to help me be better. But at the end of the day, I know they're just coaches. A coach is to get more out of you than you thought you could get of yourself. Well, I feel like that's why we call ourselves coaches, is that ultimately we can help listen to your goals, help structure plans for you, help give you guidance, get you in the right rooms, but you still have to do a lot of the work. And I think that I didn't realize that early on. I just thought because of my background, my professional education was that we just hand money off. We just, I get money from you. I hand it off to this person. They hand it off to this person. They hand it off to this person. And when I realized early on, after going through that process, and this is a football reference for those who like football, in the traditional financial space, there's more handoffs of your money than an Army-Navy football game. And so we needed to, and the further away from the deal you are, the less the money you receive. And that's the reason why most people in the traditional markets don't actually ever become successful, wealthy, rich, whatever the terminology you want to use. It's because they really are getting such a small percentage of the actual return. So I had to learn that I had to become a better investor. The second thing I had to learn is I had to learn that I actually have a unique investor DNA. God designed us each very uniquely. We all have gifts. We all have skill sets. We've all have experiences, and those will determine the things that we will invest in and also have success investing in. I didn't realize that early on. I just started following what other successful people were doing, assuming that success leaves clues and I would just win by default. Was not the case. I actually invested in my first investment property was a short-term, it was a single family property down in my college town. And I expected it to be this just huge windfall of money. And it wasn't. It wasn't coming in as fast as I thought it was. The unit above it actually flooded it out whenever its water heater broke. I ended up not liking it a lot. I didn't invest in any other ones. And there I sat just thinking, oh, this is not the thing for me. I didn't realize that my investor DNA did not like being very hands-off. I like being involved. I like owning things. I like building businesses, putting operators in businesses. It wasn't until I started figuring out that that's what I really connected with. Well, then what type of businesses could I create? What kind of investment businesses could I create? So we got in the short-term rental space, Justin, not because I like personally managing short-term rentals. I didn't. But my business partner and I knew that this was an exciting area that we could actually grow. And so we went out and found an operator, hired him, and then scaled our business from 0 units, never having stayed in a short-term rental, to having over 25 units in our local town in a period of 18 months. And that was producing $20,000 to $25,000 a month net cash flow to he and I. And we were not operating it at all. But it was a business that we owned. We realized our unique investor DNA was business owners. And so we started looking for other opportunities to do that. That's when I realized that I had to connect with who I was as an investor. And we started calling this the investor DNA. And we started building out, like, as we interviewed different podcast guests who had expertise in all these different areas, we started figuring out, okay, well, if I were to invest in this and my profile was very results oriented. I wanted, give me the benefits, give it to me now, right? Like, how would I see this investment? What would be the pros, the cons? What would be the key factors I needed to understand? And we went through it for every single profile style. And so we built this matrix out. So when people come into our world, everybody takes this test. They understand who they are. It's not like this risk-based test that you have when you're in the traditional investment world. It's an investment analysis for who we are as people. And then how will we see the investments that in which we might invest in? And we can start weeding out all the ones that will not connect with us so that we can make less bad decisions. It's like sending a kid off to college and they think that they want to be, an engineer, but they have no attention to detail and are really kind of scatterbrained. And you're like, that's not going to work out very well for you. Let's go ahead and eliminate that off your options from the beginning. Just because you like math doesn't mean that you're going to be the greatest engineer. Let's find something else you can use that skill set with.
It's so good. And I think what I love about that is it all of a sudden gives you that sense, and again, using this word, but that sense of ownership over the direction you're doing, where you're going, what your risk tolerance is, what you feel passionate about, because there's still a passion to this. And there's still a desire to it. Like, where does your interest level fall? Like, where do you want to see your financial gains come from? Where do you want to be invested in? Because we all know that where your money is invested, that's where your interest goes. Like, all of a sudden, go have and this is no knock on certain sports, but go sit and watch a cricket game, and watch it beginning to end, or go put $100 on the cricket game and then be asked to watch it Where are you going to be more interested in?
Right.
Probably when you got your $100 there. And so it's, what does this look like? How do you ultimately know where to go? And you guys have done such a great job in making that happen. Russ, you've put all of this together in a really amazing resource. You've got this new book coming out. Talk a little bit about what you've put into the book, what that means for people, how they're able to now take action on this, and what they can expect when they dive into something like this.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving a chance to talk about the book. Pretty amazing, right? I think maybe I read a total of one book a year coming out of college, right? And that was actually better than the average male, I think they said. But the fact that we've been able to write one is pretty impressive. So it's called Wealth Without Wall Street. This 3 steps to freedom through passive income, and hopefully that you'll take the opportunity to go to Amazon and pick one up. But in there, we talk about, there's just 3 steps to what you need to accomplish. One is having it's the GPS model. We're also familiar with GPS wherever we're traveling. We put in the destination. It lets us know where we are and talks about the steps we take to get there. Well, our GPS is goal plan support. And if you don't have a vision for what you want, it's going to be really hard to get there. I think for so many people, they don't have a crystal clear vision of what financial freedom should look like. And that's why we start off the book so strong on here's what the financial freedom formula is passive income greater than monthly expenses. And if you will take that framework and apply it to every financial decision you make, it will make your life so much easier. And it doesn't matter what the financial decisions are. I know many of us have qualified plans like 401ks or IRAs in our work. And I get asked the question, Russ, are those good or bad? And I say, well, it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to be financially free, I think that they're in direct conflict with what your goal is. And they say, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, let's just use that framework that I just explained. Does it produce a passive income for you? And they go, well, no, I'm 45 years old and I can't touch it till I'm 59. So no, it doesn't produce a passive income for me. And well, does it reduce a monthly expense? And no, actually I have to contribute money into it. So if anything, my expenses, quote unquote, are going up. I say, well, then here's the question. Is it getting you closer to or further from financial freedom? And I say, well, I guess based upon that, it's getting me further from. And I say, well, do you understand now why I call it the worst, tool being used out there by mainstream America to become financially free? And they go, wow, I never considered it that way. And so when you understand what your goal is, you understand what you're trying to accomplish, and then you can take a framework as easy as passive income greater than monthly expenses and apply it to every decision. It helps you determine, are you getting closer to, or are you getting further from? And then now you can start building out a plan. You can start actually analyzing, where is my money going, right? You could build an automated budget to make sure that your money goes exactly where you want to. You can get access to the cash, which you've been normally giving it away to places that you can't touch, and put it in a place in which you can. And then you build, we talked about a second ago, you understand what your investor DNA is. You build this investor buy box. You can then start making a plan to invest in assets that will produce the passive income that's aligned with who you are as an investor. And then the support, Justin, which is so crucial. I mean, you know this, your community is based around support, and ours is as well, is that you got to be in the right rooms. You have to be sitting in a room where your goals, your aspirations are the daily attainment of those people around you. And when you start leveling up, you start spending time with people who make you better, that when you come to them with an idea and they put their arm around you and they say, that's cute, but let me give you my vantage point. Let me show you what I see is possible. And it's so much bigger, so much more opportunity than you imagine. That sort of support lifts people up. And we tell people that, what you track grows, but what you track and report on grows exponentially. And that's the kind of support that we give all of our members. And we have built masterminds around helping people have that support so that they can achieve not only 100% of passive income over their monthly expenses, but actually our goal in our passive income mastermind is 200%.
Talk a little bit about the mastermind and the community that you've created as well, because obviously I've had the opportunity to keynote and workshop for you guys 3 times now, and we continue to do more and more together to because our language and how we roll is so unique, but is also so similar in the approach, where from a health and wellness standpoint, health and performance standpoint, it's data drives decisions, data determines direction, making sure it's N of 1 solutions. I always say, people always talk, oh, this supplement's the best, this diet's the best, this workout's the best, this sleep protocol's the best. And I say, well, maybe, but Is it the best for you? I don't know. Let's let the data determine. Stop with the emotions, stop with the feelings, stop with the opinions. Let's see what the data actually says. And you do the same thing for finances. You do the exact same thing. It's the exact same model, the exact same N of one solution that you're creating, but now in the financial realm, which is why I think we jam and jive and align so well. And so talk a little bit about that community, because anytime that I've been there and spoken to them, they have responded exponentially well and to my message because they're so close. And I think a lot of the audience that has heard me speak about This Way in Health so long would also love what's happening with the mastermind and the availability just to gain this wisdom. Guys, I cannot tell you enough how awesome this opportunity is to gain wisdom from a like-minded room that is so welcoming, that is so open, that has a lot of beginners in there, people that have no idea what passive income is, the people that want to start, people that want to get going, people that want to get interested, people that want to learn, people that want to take that step from where they are to where they want to be. What does that look like, Russ, and the kind of the community that's going on and when your next one is?
Yeah. So we run a couple of different communities. So we have people that come in that are just getting started and they work with one of our coaches, on a monthly basis, and they start building that, all those things we talked about, who they are as an investor, building places for them to put their cash, start building a place in which they start building passive income to equal or exceed their monthly expenses. Then we've got a community of people who've had a lot of success in life, have been really successful building income streams, building businesses, but they have not figured out a way to turn active income into passive income. And they show up, and we've built this Passive Income Mastermind, which you've spoken at 3 different times. And what makes that room unique is that they show up because really it's hard to share the successes that they have with their normal peer group. It's hard to share the failures that they have with their normal peer group. Let me give you an example. So someone who just exited a company and made $300 million, he doesn't probably have a conversation with his normal, card playing buddies about what that looks like, because it's unlikely they've had that same experience. And so he can't share what those successes look like, nor does the female business owner who's trying to figure out, like, how do I spend more time with my family? I need to be able to hire a CEO for my company so I can get out of the org chart, so I can spend more time with them. How does she have that conversation with maybe her peer group who is having to work every single day? There's not an option to take themselves out of the org chart. Like, they need that income just to make ends meet. They don't understand, like, their successes and their challenges are completely different than their normal peer group. So they show up in a room like this where that is who they're talking to. They finally found that upper 1% of people that they can connect with and share openly, as one of our common friends, Sharon Srivatsa, likes to say, have level 5 conversations. Really be able to talk about the top 5%, the bottom 5% of things going on in their life, and knowing that the person they're sharing with is not judging them, is going to be able to give them an experience because they themselves have had something similar that might be able to help lead them through a process, and using the collective experience in the room to really level up. Because at any given time you're in one of those rooms, you're probably within 1,000 deals that have been done, investment deals have been done in that room. And so anytime an opportunity is shared, it's not as much about the deal being shared, it's about the experiences around the deal. And so we go around the room and we will say, on a scale of 1 to 10, what did you think about that deal and why? And when you get to listen to some of these people who've been doing investing at a really high level for a really long time, and they share the in-depth understanding and insights around that specific thing, it helps you either solidify, this is the deal I want to do, or it uncovers things that you had not even considered and eliminates it off your plate. That's what a room like that is. And that's why so many people find value in showing up to it on a monthly basis.
It's so good. And Russ, for somebody that lives in ownership, in a word or a phrase, what would you say is your definition of ownership?
My phrase of ownership is, man, what a great question. I don't know if I've ever thought through that specific question there. Ownership is being involved, not being, not handing it off, not assuming that someone else is going to take it for me, but it being the one who ultimately has to, at the end of the day, be responsible for the for the process. And I think the same thing's true with money, is that we can't hand off our money to someone else and expect them to do it for us, nor can we do that with our health. We ultimately have to be the one who's responsible.
So good. Russ, where can people find the book or get further access to you in the community if they're interested?
Yeah. If you want to go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/own it, we built a page and we'll give you access to the book and to other resources. We mentioned in here the Investor DNA. We talked a little bit about the Passive Income Mastermind. So I'll make sure all of those links are available. And if you want to have a conversation with one of our coaches, we always offer a complimentary 15-minute call with them just to ask questions and better figure out if this is something that might be a right next thing for you.
Guys, I really encourage you to lean in, because Russ is creating something that is so powerful, so different, so unique. We often talk on this show what different means. It means to be set apart, to stand out, to show people what's possible. And I really encourage you, take him up on that. wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/own it, to really kind of lean in and have access to everything all in one place. Because you may be sitting there and going, hey, I feel like I'm focused on health and longevity, but I'm worried about my cash flow. I don't know how to generate cash flow. I don't know what this whole passive income thing means. I'm struggling with my time freedom. I don't have time freedom right now. I feel pressed in a lot of these things. A lot of things I want to do, a lot of things I want to focus on, a lot of things I want to lean into just aren't available to me because I feel stressed on the finances. I feel stressed in this area. And so the areas that I'm trying to gain, I'm actually losing long-term because I'm just going to have to pay for the consequences down the road. You don't have to be stuck in this wagon wheel. You don't have to continue to be in this space. You've heard me talk a lot about it. Data determines decisions. Data drives direction. And a lot of times in our finances, we just don't know. If you don't know what's happening or you don't understand what the possibilities are, you're going to continue to do what the status quo has been. And that is not how we live. That is not success. We know at the end of the day that success is different. And when we lean into things that are different, we can live different and live in an elevated way. We have to make sure we have goals. We have to make sure that we plan, and we have to make sure that we have the support to get us to where we want to go. And that depends on you. It depends on you saying yes to different. It involves you saying yes to something new, and ultimately being able to say, this is something that I'm interested. This is something that I'm curious about. So I encourage you, go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/own it to figure out what this looks like for you so that you can take ownership of your finances, just like you've decided to take ownership of your health, because we know success is different. So own your different, and we'll see you guys next week.